Good day. The family tree sometimes grows in the most unexpected directions. Today we will follow such an unusual history of growth and change. Vera always prepared tea in a special way. First, she rinsed the teapot with boiling water to warm it up. Then she put in 3 spoons of large leaf tea, the same one she and Maxim had brought back for the first time from vacation a few years ago and which had since become their little family tradition, leaving it to infuse for exactly 5 minutes. She covered the teapot with a knitted cozy, which her mother-in-law had made long ago, back when she was alive, and that cover, faded and unraveling in places, seemed to Vera a sort of talisman of their marriage, the keeper of that comfort she and Maxim had created with such care in their 2-room apartment on the 5th floor of a typical 9-story block. The morning began with precisely this ritual. Maxim would wake up to the smell of freshly brewed tea, stretch like a big, lazy tomcat, and come into the kitchen barefoot. Wearing only his lounge pants, he would hug Vera from behind, kiss the top of her head, and mumble something unclear about her being the best. She would laugh, nudge him gently in the stomach with her elbow, and say, "Move, Maxim, let me pour it properly." But inside, she melted from this simple tenderness, from the feeling that they were a real family, that the 14 years of marriage hadn't dulled their feelings, but on the contrary, had polished them to a special closeness. On that day, when everything began to change, although Vera didn't understand it yet, the morning was particularly gloomy. Beyond the window hung a dense grey curtain through which the March light hardly penetrated, and even the usual noise from the courtyard, the barking of dogs, the voices of children going to school, the noise of dumpsters, seemed muffled, as if the surrounding world had hidden under a cotton quilt. Maxim entered the kitchen silently, didn't hug her, didn't kiss her, just sat at the table and stared fixedly at his phone. "The tea is ready," said Vera, pouring tea into cups, adding boiling water from the kettle and watching the golden liquid rotate in a small vortex. "Maxim, do you hear me?" "Yes, yes," he answered, without lifting his eyes from the screen. "Thank you." She sat opposite, took her cup with both hands, feeling a pleasant warmth spreading through her palms, and looked at her husband carefully. Had Maxim aged in the last year, or had she simply not noticed before? The fine wrinkles at the corners of his eyes had deepened. Evident grayness had appeared at his temples. His shoulders were somehow hunched. He was only 42 years old, but he looked older now, exhausted, as if life was sucking his strength drop by drop. "Are you okay?" Vera asked, taking a small sip. The tea burned her tongue, but she didn't wince. "Normal," Maxim grumbled. "Just work, lots of things to do." Work. It's always work. Maxim worked as an engineer at a small production facility outside the city, went there by bus, returned tired, often irritated. In the last few months, he had started staying overtime more and more often. Either overtime, or an urgent order, or a meeting. Vera didn't complain. She understood that money was needed, especially now that their eldest daughter, Ekaterina, had started college and funds were needed for the dorm, for textbooks, for everything that turns student life from a struggle into a more or less bearable existence. "By the way, I'm going on a business trip," Maxim announced abruptly, still without detaching himself from the phone. "The day after tomorrow on a business trip?" Vera asked, feeling something tighten inside her. "You didn't use to go away before." "Where?" "To the plant. They have a problem with the equipment. A specialist is needed. 4, 5, or 7 days. Maybe more. We'll see how it goes." Finally he raised his eyes, met her gaze, and Vera noticed something strange on his face, a certain wariness, nervousness, as if he was waiting for her reaction. But what reaction? To an ordinary business trip. "Well, all right," she agreed slowly. "I'll pack your things. What do you need to take with you?" "I'll pack myself," Maxim cut her off shortly and returned to his phone. They spent the rest of breakfast in silence. Maxim hurriedly drank his tea, ate the sandwich Vera had prepared the night before, and left for work, tossing a dry bye at parting. The door slammed, and a very deep silence fell in the apartment, an alarming silence. Just like it happens before a storm, when the air is electrified and the birds go silent, sensing that something is wrong. Vera stood up, began clearing the table, mechanically putting the dishes in the sink. Her hands moved on their own, and her thoughts wandered somewhere far away. A business trip. For the first time in 14 years. Isn't that strange? And this nervousness of Maxim's, and the way he avoided her gaze, and the phone in which he had his nose buried, as if something incredibly important was there. Don't make things up, Vera scolded herself. It's just work, just a business trip. Men don't like changes, that's why he's nervous. But the anxiety wouldn't pass. It had settled somewhere under her ribs like a heavy stone, and no matter how much Vera tried to distract herself, she cleaned the apartment, did the laundry, called Ekaterina, who complained about a difficult exam session. This stone didn't disappear, but became heavier and heavier. Maxim returned late in the evening, ate the reheated soup silently, and went to bed immediately. Vera lay down beside him, listening to his breathing, trying to understand if he was sleeping or pretending. After a few minutes, Maxim shifted, turned his back to her, and she saw his phone screen light up the darkness. He typed something quickly, focused, then turned off the screen again and froze. Who is he texting? A treacherous thought crossed her mind. Vera dismissed it immediately. She shouldn't, it's not right. Trust is the foundation of marriage. That's what her mother always told her. That's what she had always believed too. The morning of the day after tomorrow, Maxim packed a small travel bag, said goodbye quickly, almost negligently, and left. Vera stood at the window, watching him exit the stairwell, walking towards the bus stop. But suddenly he stopped, looked around furtively, took out his phone, checked something, and turned around. He didn't walk towards the bus stop, but towards the neighboring entrance, quickly pulling his head between his shoulders. Their 9-story block was long. It had 3 entrances, arranged in a semicircle, and Maxim headed towards the second entrance. Vera's heart began to beat faster. She pressed herself against the window, trying to make out what was happening. Maxim disappeared into the entrance. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Vera had already decided that he had exited through the other side. The entrance had an exit to the back too, that she simply found it suspicious. But then the entrance door opened and Maxim came out. And next to him was a woman, Vera, the neighbor from the second entrance. They saw each other sometimes in the yard, said hello, exchanged trivial phrases about the weather. Vera worked somewhere in an office, lived alone after her divorce, was younger than Vera by about 10 years. A dyed blonde, flashy, with makeup always impeccable. Vera had never given her any importance, considered her just a neighbor. And now Vera stood next to Maxim and they were talking about something. Maxim was smiling. He was smiling with that smile Vera hadn't seen for a very long time, that light boyish smile that had once made her fall in love with him. Then Vera laughed, touched him on the arm, and they parted, Maxim towards the bus stop, Vera back into the entrance. Vera stepped away from the window. Her head was buzzing. Maybe this means nothing? Maybe they just met by chance? Maybe. But a certainty had already installed itself inside, cold and merciless. There is no business trip. The first 2 days Vera existed as if in a fog, through which only scattered sounds and sensations penetrated. The sound of the alarm, the noise of water in the bathroom, the creaking of floorboards under her feet, that painfully familiar creak that usually calmed her, but now irritated her, reminding her how many years she and Maxim had lived within these walls, how many times they had stepped on the same boards, without even thinking that someday everything could change so quickly, so imperceptibly, as the color of the sky changes before sunset. She tried to convince herself that she was mistaken, that what she had seen in the morning had a completely innocent explanation. Maybe Maxim really met Vera by chance in the yard? Maybe she asked him for a little help, to carry something heavy, to fix a faucet. Men are always ready to help a woman, especially one as good-looking as Vera. But then why did he enter her stairwell before they came out together? Her inner voice whispered treacherously, a voice impossible to escape. And where did the bag disappear to? Surely he left the bag with her, and walked to the station just to go somewhere and then return. On the 3rd day, in the evening, Maxim called. The voice in the receiver seemed tired, but calm, even too calm for a man who, supposedly, works at an unknown plant in emergency mode. "How are you?" he asked banally, as if he hadn't left for the first time, as if that invisible crack that Vera felt with every cell hadn't settled between them. "Normal," she answered briefly, squeezing the phone so hard her knuckles turned white and her fingers tensed, and she felt her nails digging into her palm. "How is work?" "Oh, nothing, we're managing." Maxim yawned. "I'm terribly tired. The equipment here is so old, it barely works. Every screw needs to be checked 3 times. Vera listened to him and thought that before she could always distinguish the falseness in his voice, when he lied to Ekaterina that Santa Claus exists, when he embellished stories about his youth, when he gave her mother compliments he didn't actually believe. She always felt that barely perceptible tension, that microscopic error in intonation. And now she felt nothing. Either he started lying better, or she forgot how to understand him. "When are you returning?" she asked, striving for her voice to sound even. "In about 4 days, I think, maybe sooner, if we finish quickly." "Vera, why are you so—" "I don't know, distant. I'm simply tired. Ekaterina called, she's asking for money for some study guides again." "Well, give it to her," Maxim threw out lightly. "I left money on the card." "Yes, I gave it," confirmed Vera, and pausing a little, added, "Maxim, you take care there, okay? Take care of yourself." There was a 1-second silence on the line, and it seemed to Vera that she heard him flinch, his breathing change. But then he laughed briefly, nervously. "Ver, what's with you?" "It's as if I went to war. It's an ordinary business trip. Everything will be fine. Kisses. Good night." He hung up first, quickly, as if hurrying to end the conversation. Vera left the phone in her lap and sat like that for a long time, looking at the wall where their family photo from 5 years ago hung. Her with Maxim and Ekaterina on the seashore. All tanned. Happy. Laughing. Maxim was hugging both of them, holding them to his chest. And his face radiated such sincere joy that now, looking at this picture, Vera couldn't believe this man was capable of betrayal. "Maybe I'm imagining it all," she asked herself. "Maybe I'm going crazy from loneliness, because Ekaterina left, because life has somehow become gray and predictable." But the next morning, going out of the entrance for bread, Vera saw Lyra. She was standing in the yard, studying some receipts, and Vera slowed her pace involuntarily, studying the neighbor with a look she had never given her before. Lyra was dressed in tight jeans and a short leather jacket. Her hair arranged in waves, makeup impeccable, although the clock showed only 8 in the morning. She looked as if she was always ready for a meeting, for a date, for someone to notice her. "Good morning," said Vera, stopping intentionally next to her. Lyra, startled, turned around, and for a moment something resembling fear flashed on her face, but she mastered herself quickly and smiled forcedly. "Oh, hi. How are you?" asked Vera, staring at her, trying to catch at least something, at least the smallest hint that her suspicions were well-founded. "Well, everything is normal. Work, hustle." Lyra shrugged, visibly in a hurry to end the conversation. "Is it a hustle for you too? My husband, look, went on a business trip. I'm staying alone." Vera pronounced this slowly, watching Lyra's reaction. And she wasn't mistaken. The corner of Lyra's mouth twitched. She averted her gaze. "Oh, well, yes, same old. Sometimes it gets boring," mumbled Lyra, and suddenly became agitated. "Oh my, I have to run, I'm late. See you." She practically ran, and Vera watched her go, feeling something heavy and bitter rising inside. Lyra's reaction was more eloquent than any words. That awkwardness, that desire to escape, that fear at the mention of Maxim's business trip. "It means everything is true," thought Vera. And in a strange way, instead of pain came a cold calm, almost a relief that now she no longer had to guess and doubt. Now everything is clear. She returned home, forgetting about the bread, sat in the kitchen and simply sat, looking at the cup she hadn't finished in the morning. Logically speaking, she should cry, scream, call Maxim and make a scene, call her girlfriends and complain, seek consolation. But there were no tears. There was only this strange numbness and the thought spinning in her head like a broken record. 14 years. 14 years I thought I knew this man. In the evening of the same day, when twilight had fallen beyond the window and the yard filled with the shouts of children returning from play, Vera went out onto the balcony to smoke. She had quit this habit about 5 years ago, but now she felt an acute, unbearable need. The balcony faced the yard, and from here the windows of the neighboring entrances were clearly visible. Vera lit her cigarette, inhaled, and looked at the second entrance. On the 4th floor, the light was on in Lyra's apartment. And then, as a mockery of fate, a male silhouette appeared at one of the windows. Vera squinted, trying to see better, but the silhouette disappeared. Maybe she imagined it? Or was it someone else, a guest of Lyra's, a completely strange person? But Maxim is on a business trip, she reminded herself ironically, almost smiling at her own naivety. The cigarette burned down to the filter, burning her fingers. Vera threw it down without looking and returned to the apartment. Something had to be done. She couldn't simply sit and wait for her husband to return from his mistress and play the tired worker. But what exactly to do, Vera didn't know yet. She only felt a plan ripening inside, an idea, still foggy and unclear, but gradually taking shape. The next 2 days Vera spent in a feverish state, oscillating between the desire to clarify everything immediately and a strange, almost morbid curiosity. But what will happen next? How far did this betrayal go? How deep did Maxim sink into the lie? She caught herself leaving the house intentionally at a certain hour, lingering at the mailboxes, pretending to rummage for some receipt, although in reality she was stalking the second entrance, waiting to see Maxim. And she saw him on the 5th day of his imaginary trip. It was around 11 in the morning. Vera was standing at the bedroom window, finishing her cold coffee and thinking that she must finally get to work, not waste time with this spying, an undignified, humiliating spying on her own husband, when the balcony door of Lyra's apartment opened, and Maxim came out. He was dressed in a grey home t-shirt and sweatpants, the same ones he usually lounged on the sofa in on weekends. Barefoot, with disheveled hair, and he had such a satisfied air, so relaxed, as if he had just woken up after a long and sweet sleep. Behind him came Lyra in a silk robe, thrown over something lacy, pink, indecently provocative. She caught up with Maxim, wrapped her arms around his neck, pulled him towards her and kissed him long, greedily, the way lovers who miss each other kiss. Maxim put his hands on her waist, squeezed her to his chest, and Vera saw his fingers slip under the robe. How Lyra laughed and pushed him playfully, saying something. And he laughed, kissed her once more quickly and returned to the apartment. Vera stepped away from the window. Coffee spilled into the saucer because her hands were trembling slightly, treacherously. And no matter how much she tried to control herself, she trembled. So that's how it is. That's what this looks like. Her husband, the father of her child, the man with whom she lived 14 years, kissing another woman under her eyes. In the neighboring entrance, not even bothering to go somewhere further, to invent a plausible lie. Why exactly here? Vera thought, putting the cup on the windowsill so as not to break it. Why didn't he rent an apartment somewhere at the other end of the city? He didn't really go on a business trip, if he decided to cheat anyway. Why this impertinence? It's a spit in my face. And then she realized, precisely because of that, because it's more convenient, more comfortable, safer. You can return home at any moment if something goes wrong. You can control the situation, live a double life without stressing too much, moving from one apartment to another like from one room to another. And most importantly, he was sure Vera would never find out, because she is trusting, because she loves him, because in 14 years he accustomed her not to ask extra questions. Suddenly, someone rang the doorbell. Vera started, turned around. Who could it be? She approached the door, looked through the peephole and saw the neighbor from the 3rd floor, Galina Petrovna, an elderly woman with whom she sometimes exchanged a few phrases in the elevator. Vera dear, are you home? A muffled voice was heard through the door. Vera opened, mimicking a smile. Good day, Galina Petrovna. Did something happen? Well, no, nothing, the neighbor bustled, holding out a small bag. Look, I baked cabbage pies. I thought, let me serve the neighbors. You are alone now, the husband, they say, is away on a business trip. Vera took the bag, feeling everything inside tighten into a tight knot. They say, it means Maxim managed to tell her about the business trip. Or Lyra let it slip to someone, and gossip in such blocks spreads faster than the wind. Yes, on a business trip, she confirmed with an even voice. Thank you very much for the pies. Eat in good health. Galina Petrovna hesitated, clearly wanting to say something more. And finally she dared, Vera, forgive me for meddling where I shouldn't, but, well, people say various things. I don't believe in gossip, but you still keep your eyes open. Okay. Men, they are like that, if you're not careful. What are you talking about? Asked Vera, although she understood perfectly what it was about. Galina Petrovna fidgeted, blushed. Oh, just so, nothing, just take care of each other. Nowadays times are like this, everyone is somehow nervous, mean. Look, my neighbor from below divorced recently. They lived together 20 years, and there you have it. He left for a young one. Says he wanted new sensations. And he has 3 children and grandchildren already. Has no shame. She shook her head disapprovingly and, saying goodbye, left. Vera closed the door, leaned her back against it and closed her eyes. It means the neighbors are already discussing it. It means she is the last to know. Everyone around saw, understood, whispered behind her back, and she, naive fool, continued to believe in the business trip, in love, in fidelity. No, not the last, she corrected herself. I already know, just that for now I'm silent. Vera went into the kitchen, took a pie out of the bag, bit into it, but didn't taste it. Something had to be done. One cannot simply wait until Maxim deigns to return and continue playing the loving husband. But what exactly to do? Make a scene? Throw his things onto the stairwell? Go to Lyra and tell her everything she thinks about her? No, decided Vera, feeling something cold and hard lighting up inside, resembling ice that doesn't melt even in the sun. I will do it differently. I will wait. I will smile when he returns. I will make him tea as always, and I will make him regret what he did. She didn't know yet exactly how she would do it, but the plan was beginning to form, to acquire details. And the more Vera thought, the clearer it became that a simple scandal is too cheap, too predictable. Maxim expects a scandal, is prepared for it, maybe even wants it, to blame her, her hysteria, the fact that she doesn't understand his needs, that she has become boring and gloomy. But I won't give him this pleasure, Vera promised herself. In the evening Ekaterina called. Her daughter's voice was tired, a little stuffy. Mom, hi. How are you? Normal, sunshine, lied Vera, trying to seem lively. How is the exam session? A nightmare. I failed an exam. Now I have to go for a retake. And this cursed flu. Everyone in the dorm is sick. Mom, but when is Dad returning? He promised in about 2 days. Why? Ekaterina hesitated. Oh, just so, simply. I wanted to talk to him. He hasn't called me in a long time. Oh, never mind, doesn't matter. Listen, can you transfer me some more money for medicine and for the retake? It has to be paid there. Sure, I'll transfer, promised Vera. Ekaterina, you take care of yourself there, drink tea with honey, dress warmly. Okay, Mom. Love you. I love you too, darling. When the conversation ended, Vera sat on the sofa, wrapped her arms around her knees and sat like that for a long time, staring into nothingness. Ekaterina, their daughter. What will she say when she finds out about her father? How will this affect her? And should she tell her? Everything will collapse, thought Vera. Our family, our life, everything we built. And it's not even about Lyra, nor about the betrayal. It's about Maxim betraying us all, me, and Ekaterina, and himself. He chose these handouts, these cheap caresses in the neighboring entrance instead of what we had. But along with the pain grew the resolve. Vera felt herself becoming stronger, harder, felt that softness that had always been her characteristic disappearing. Maxim wanted new sensations. Well, he will get them. Just not exactly the ones he was counting on. On the 7th day in the morning, Maxim called again, and Vera, looking at the name displayed on the screen, froze for 1 second before answering. She had to gather herself, remember who she needs to be now, the trusting wife, who misses her husband, who awaits his return. "Hello," she pronounced, trying to give her voice a warmth she didn't feel. "Hi, Vera," answered Maxim. And this diminutive, which he hadn't used for a year or more, scratched her hearing with falseness. "How are you there?" "Normal." "I miss you," she lied easily, almost effortlessly, wondering how simply lying comes when you know the person on the other end of the line is lying to you 100 times more. "When are you coming back?" "Well, I'm calling just to say, I'm arriving tomorrow evening. Finally finished everything. Can leave. I missed you terribly. I want home. I want your tea, your pies." "My tea," Vera sneered in her mind, feeling something dark and evil rising inside, something she hadn't known about herself before. "Good, I'm waiting for you," she said gently. "Maybe prepare something special for dinner?" "Oh, no need for special. Make it as usual. I just want to return to normal life. I'm tired of this business trip. Honestly, I'm never accepting such a thing again." "I understand, it was probably hard. Maxim, you being there. Did you eat properly at least? Didn't get sick?" She asked these questions intentionally, watching herself from the side, as if it wasn't her, but another woman, an actress playing the role of the loving and caring wife. And, strangely enough, it came out convincingly, maybe even too convincingly, because Maxim on the other end visibly relaxed. His voice became even more negligent, domestic. "Yes, everything is normal, don't worry. They fed us at the plant canteen, admittedly, not very tasty, but bearable. Listen, I have to run, have some work left to finish. See you tomorrow." "Okay. Love you." "Love you too," Vera mumbled. And when he hung up, she threw the phone on the sofa. "Love you." How easily he said it, how banally, as if he really loved, as if he hadn't spent the last week in the arms of another woman in the neighboring entrance, 20 meters from his own home. This ease of betrayal amazed her more than the fact of infidelity itself. Maxim didn't even struggle, didn't fret, had no pangs of conscience. He simply lived a double life and derived pleasure from it. Vera stood up, approached the mirror in the hallway, looked at her reflection. 40 years. She looked her age, maybe a little older. The fine wrinkles around her eyes, which before seemed cute traces of smiles, now seemed proof of fading. Her face had become drawn this week. Dark circles had settled under her eyes. Her lips had become thinner, harder. She studied herself detachedly, trying to understand at what moment she stopped being attractive to her husband, when he began looking at her like furniture, like a part of the interior that is always in its place, but to which you no longer pay attention. But maybe it's not about me, she thought. Maybe it's about him? That he got scared of old age, wanted to feel young again, desired. But these reflections brought no relief. What difference does it make why he did it? What matters is only what he did, what he chose. The day dragged agonizingly long. Vera tried to occupy herself with household chores, washed the bed linen again, although it was clean. She wiped the dust in all rooms twice, tidied up the kitchen cupboards, throwing out expired groats and canned food. Work helped her not to think, but as soon as her hands stopped, thoughts crashed down again like an avalanche. Towards evening she went down into the yard, supposedly to throw out the trash. She stood at the dumpsters, lit a cigarette, this cursed habit returned again, and looked at the windows of the second entrance. On the 4th floor, the light was on. Beyond the window, shadows moved, two silhouettes that approached and retreated from each other in a wordless dance. Vera watched, and inside there was neither pain nor jealousy, only a cold clarity and a growing certainty that tomorrow, when Maxim crossed the threshold of their apartment, everything would change. Vera, Why are you standing here? A voice was heard from behind, and Vera turned around. It was Nadia, her old friend, with whom they had been friends since school, but whom she saw rarely in recent years. Life had separated them into different neighborhoods, with different worries. Nadia looked, as always, a little disheveled, but cheerful, with shopping bags in her hands. Nad. Vera was surprised. What are you doing here? Well, I came to my aunt, she lives near here. Decided to pop into the store on the way, explained Nadia, putting the bags down and studying her friend carefully. Ver, what's with you? I don't know, you're somehow different. Everything is normal. Vera wanted to say that everything is excellent, that she is just tired, but suddenly she felt a lump in her throat, felt her eyes tearing up treacherously. She turned away, extinguished the cigarette on the edge of the dumpster. Nadia, come to my place, she asked quietly. We need to talk. They went up to the apartment silently. Vera made tea, again this soothing and so familiar ritual, poured it into cups, sat opposite her friend and suddenly discovered she didn't know where to start. Maxim is cheating on me, she brought out finally straight, without preamble. And hearing these words aloud, she felt them gaining materiality, becoming a reality from which one can no longer escape. Nadia froze with the cup in her hands. Her eyes widened. Are you sure? Maybe you imagined it. Sure. I saw with my own eyes. For a week he has been living at neighbor Lyra's in the second entrance. He said he was on a business trip, but he is there, 2 steps away. Nadia, he didn't even strive to hide it properly, didn't go somewhere far, simply moved into the other stairwell, as if I were blind. Nadia put the cup down, reached across the table, covered Vera's hand with hers. Vera, I'm so sorry. What do you intend to do? I don't know, admitted Vera, although it wasn't exactly true. She knew, just that she wasn't ready to say it aloud yet. Tomorrow he returns, we'll play the tired worker, we'll tell about the business trip. And I don't know if I'll be able to look at him and stay silent. But why stay silent? Nadia squeezed her hand tighter. Vera, you have to tell him everything, kick him out, file for divorce. He doesn't deserve you. 14 years. Damn it, 14 years. And he does this to you. I know, interrupted Vera. But just a scandal is too simple. He expects a scandal, is ready for it. Maybe he even wants me to have hysterics, and then he will be able to blame me, that I became unbearable. And then what? Vera fell silent, sipped her tea. It was hot, burning, and this pain seemed almost pleasant against the background of that dull pain sitting somewhere inside. I will make him tea as always, she said quietly, weighing every word. I will greet him calmly, without pretensions. Let him believe nothing has changed, that I know nothing. And then I will tell him something that will make him understand what mistake he made. I haven't decided yet exactly what, but I will find the right words. Such words that he will remember forever. Nadia looked at her with concern. Ver, you scare me. You haven't planned anything dangerous. Vera grinned. The first time this week. She grinned sincerely. No, of course not. I don't intend to kill him, if that's what you mean. I just want him to realize, to regret, to understand what he lost. But do you want to take him back? Asked Nadia cautiously. Vera thought. Did she want to? A week ago she would have answered, yes, without hesitation. Now she didn't know. Now inside was a void where there was no room for either love or hate, just tiredness and a strange, almost detached curiosity. I don't know, she admitted honestly. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Vera woke up early, when beyond the window there was still a pre-dawn blueness, and in the apartment reigned that special silence which exists only in the morning, before the city finally wakes up and fills with its usual sounds. She lay staring at the ceiling and felt a strange calm, almost indifference, as if everything that had to happen today had already happened somewhere in a parallel reality, and she only had to reproduce this on the stage of her life. She spent the day in preparations. She cleaned the apartment until it shone, although everything was clean anyway, but she wanted Maxim to see ideal order, that comfort he had exchanged for cheap pleasures in the neighboring entrance. She cooked his favorite borscht, put it in the fridge, cut bread, took out the sour cream. Then she stood for a long time in front of the closet, choosing what to wear. She settled on a simple blue dress, the same one in which Maxim had once told her she looked like a young girl, like that Vera he fell in love with 20 years ago. Around 6 in the evening, everything was ready. Vera set the table, put the kettle on, took out the box with their special tea. Her hands weren't trembling. Inside was absolute clarity, which almost scared her too. At 6:30 the key turned in the door. Vera sat in the kitchen, listening to the familiar sounds. Maxim putting his bag in the hallway, taking off his jacket, taking off his shoes. Then his steps, approaching the kitchen. And here he appeared in the door frame, a little crumpled, with a tired face. But in his eyes danced little lights of satisfaction. Those lights a man has who spent a week in pleasures. "Hi," he said. And his voice sounded naturally warm, as if he had really just returned from a difficult business trip. "I missed you." He approached, hugged her, and Vera forced herself not to withdraw, not to push him away. She pressed herself to him, inhaled his smell and felt a foreign perfume, a light, sickly sweet aroma, which definitely wasn't hers. Maxim clearly hadn't even bothered to shower before returning. "I missed you too," she pronounced, withdrawing and smiling. "Come in, sit down, you must be tired. The tea is ready, I'm making it fresh now." Maxim sighed with relief, sat at the table, stretched, loosening his stiff muscles. "Yes, I'm terribly exhausted. This business trip was simply a nightmare. I am so glad to return home. You can't even imagine." "I imagine," agreed Vera, taking out the tea. She opened the box, poured the leaves into the warmed teapot, poured boiling water. "Will you tell me how it was?" And Maxim told. He spoke about the plant, about the old equipment, about local craftsmen who understood nothing of modern technology, about the hotel where he was supposedly accommodated, about the horrible food. He lied easily, with inspiration, stringing details one after another, and Vera listened, covering the teapot with a cozy, pouring into cups and thinking how well he does it, how convincingly he lies and how many times, possibly, he had lied before, and she hadn't noticed. "Here, drink, while it's hot," she said, putting the cup in front of him. Maxim took it, took a sip, closed his eyes with pleasure. "God, how I missed your tea." There I drank all sorts of slop from the vending machine, a rare nastiness. "And this is the taste of home." "The taste of home," repeated Vera quietly, sitting opposite with her own cup. She didn't drink, just held the cup in her hands, feeling its warmth. "Maxim, do you really consider this a home?" He raised his gaze. Misunderstanding flashed in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "Just curious." Vera smiled, and the smile came out strange. Not at all as she had planned it. "Because for the whole week you weren't here. Maybe where you were, it was just as comfortable like home." Maxim froze. The cup froze halfway to his lips. A state of alert appeared in his gaze, like an animal sensing danger. "Vera, what are you talking about?" "About the fact, Maxim, that I know everything." Her voice remained calm, almost indifferent. And precisely this calm made the words scarier than any shout. "You weren't on any business trip. You spent this week at Lyra's, in the second entrance, 20 meters from our apartment." Maxim turned white. The cup began to tremble in his hands and he put it abruptly on the table, spilling tea. "Vera, it's not what you think." "But what I think," she interrupted him just as calmly, "is that my husband, with whom I lived 14 years, decided to cheat on me with a neighbor, that he didn't even bother to hide this properly, but simply moved into the neighboring entrance. That he returned home smelling of her perfume and is sitting now in front of me, lying about a business trip. Vera, forgive me, I didn't want to. It was just..." Maxim stumbled over words, turned even whiter, visibly trying to find an escape. "What can I say? It meant nothing, do you understand?" just stupidity, a weakness. I love you, I love only you. And that was, I don't know, a wandering of the mind. 1 week the madness lasted, specified Vera, taking a small sip of tea. It was hot, strong, with an astringent bitterness. Or longer. Maxim, how long has this been going on? He fell silent, lowering his eyes, and Vera saw red spots appearing on his face, saw him clenching and unclenching his fists. 2 months, he mumbled finally. Vera, forgive me, I didn't want to hurt you. It simply happened by itself. She was close. She understood me. I felt young with her. A necessary one. And with me you felt old and useless. Vera tilted her head to one side, studying him as if seeing him for the first time. I understood. You know, Maxim, I spent this week thinking. I was thinking what to say to you when you return. I wanted to make a scene, kick you out, destroy your things. Then I thought about just packing my things in silence and leaving. But do you know what I realized? What? He asked hoarsely. That I don't want to fight for you anymore. I'm tired, Maxim, tired of being your wife, the mother of your child, the keeper of your comfort, while you have fun somewhere else. She put the cup down and clasped her hands on the table. And do you know what else? The neighbors already know everything. Galina Petrovna hinted at it yesterday. They are surely discussing what a fool I am, not seeing where my husband really spends his time. Not only did you betray me, but you made our family a laughingstock. You made Ekaterina a laughingstock. What should I tell her? That her father started an affair with the neighbor because he wanted to feel young. Maxim jumped to his feet, rushed to her, fell to his knees beside her, and grabbed her hands. Vera, please, don't do this, I beg you. I understand everything. I am an idiot. But don't destroy our family. Think about Ekaterina, about what we had, about what we went through together. I will break off the connection with Lyra, I swear. I will never see her again. Give me a chance to fix everything, please. Vera looked down at him, at this man kneeling before her, and felt nothing. No pity, no triumph, not even satisfaction. Just a void. Maxim, get up. Don't humiliate yourself, she said wearily. And you don't need to swear. Your oaths are worth nothing. I will correct myself. I will do whatever you say. Just don't leave. Don't destroy what we built for 14 years. He continued to beg, his voice trembling and breaking. Vera freed her hands, stood up, and went to the window. Outside, dusk was falling, lights were turning on in the neighboring windows, and somewhere there, in one of those windows, Lyra was probably sitting and waiting to see how this evening would end. I will think about it, Vera finally said, without turning around. But don't hope, Maxim, don't hope that everything will go back to how it was, because nothing will ever be the same. Maxim stayed to sleep in the living room on the sofa they had once chosen together at the furniture store, arguing over the color of the upholstery. Back then it seemed so important, grey or beige, with armrests or without. And now this sofa had turned into a border between them, into a no-man's land where Maxim spent a sleepless night, tossing from one side to the other. And Vera heard those sounds through the thin wall and thought about what would come next. In the morning she woke up early, as usual, made tea, and sat by the window with a notebook. She had to think everything through, to weigh things, to understand what she really wanted, to punish Maxim or to save what could still be saved. But the more she thought, the clearer it became that there was nothing left to save, that their marriage had ended the moment Maxim crossed the threshold of Lyra's apartment, and all that remained now was to decide exactly how to part ways and on what terms. He is afraid I will destroy the family, Vera thought, writing something in the notebook. He is afraid of public condemnation. He is afraid that Ekaterina will turn against him. He is afraid of being left with nothing. And this fear is the only thing I can use. Maxim came out of the living room around 8 o'clock, rumpled, with red eyes, in a wrinkled t-shirt. He looked so pathetic that Vera felt a wave of pity for a moment, but she quickly suppressed the feeling. Good morning, she said evenly. Tea is on the table. Drink it while it's hot. Thank you, he murmured, sitting opposite her and not raising his eyes. He took the cup, took a sip, and Vera could see his hands shaking. Vera, have you thought about it? I thought all night, she nodded, putting the notebook aside. And you know, Maxim, I am ready to give you a chance. One single chance to fix everything. He raised his head abruptly. Hope sparked in his eyes. Really, Vera? I will do everything, whatever you say. I swear. Just don't swear, she interrupted him wearily. Better listen carefully. I am not kicking you out. For now. But there are conditions, and they are not negotiable. Either you accept, or I file the divorce papers this very day and tell everyone, including Ekaterina, what really happened. Maxim went pale, but nodded. Okay. What conditions? Vera took a sheet of paper from the notebook on which she had written down everything she had come up with during the night, and put it in front of him on the table. First. Today you go to Lyra and end this relationship in front of me. I want to hear what you tell her. I want to see her face, she began. Her voice sounded firm, without emotion, as if she were reading an official document. Second, you transfer our apartment completely to my name. It becomes my property. But Vera. Shut up. I haven't finished, she cut him off. Third, the car is also transferred to my name. Fourth, you open access to all your accounts for me, show me all your income. I need to know how much money we have and what you spend it on. Fifth, you tell Ekaterina yourself about what happened, but you don't blame me, you don't make excuses. You say honestly that you cheated, that you made a mistake. Maxim listened, and his face grew paler and paler. His lips tightened into a thin line. You want to leave me with nothing, he said dully. That is all I have. All you have. Vera laughed bitterly. But what do I have, Maxim? 14 years of devotion that you trampled on. The reputation of a cheated wife that the neighbors gossip about. I just want guarantees that if you decide to have fun somewhere else again, I won't be left on the street with nothing. The apartment and the car are compensation for the humiliations you put me through. But it's not fair, he tried to protest, and notes of resentment appeared in his voice, as if he had been betrayed, not the other way around. Not fair. Vera leaned forward, looking him straight in the eyes. Do you know what isn't fair? When your wife finds out from the neighbor that her husband is the laughingstock of the entire courtyard. Galina Petrovna hinted so transparently yesterday that I almost burned with shame. Do you imagine how many people knew about your affair and discussed me, the poor fool who notices nothing? I became a subject of gossip, Maxim. And if you think you can simply apologize and everything will go back to normal, you are mistaken. Maxim fell silent, processing what he heard, and Vera could see a feverish calculation taking place in his mind. What he loses, what he gains, if the game is worth the effort. Finally, he sighed heavily. And if I accept all this, will we stay together? Will you give me a chance to rebuild our marriage? I don't know, Vera answered honestly. Possibly, but only if you prove that you have truly changed. And that is proved by deeds, not words. For now, I am just giving you the possibility of not losing the family permanently. You accept my conditions, you live here, you try to redeem your guilt. You don't accept, I file for divorce tomorrow, and then I will get half the assets through court anyway, plus alimony. So choose. She stood up, took the paper from the table, folded it, and put it in her robe pocket. Maxim sat motionless, staring into the cup of cold tea, and it was visible on his face that he was cornered, that he really had no choice. Fine. He finally got out with difficulty. I agree. I agree to everything. Just give me time, Vera. Please. Time? She asked. For what? To invent how to fool me again. No, simply. I will talk to Lyra today, but time is needed for the documents. They need to be drawn up. At the registry office. 2 weeks, Vera cut him off shortly. I give you 2 weeks to finalize everything. And every day I will check what you are doing for this. And the talk with Lyra is today at noon. I am going with you. Maxim flinched. Vera, it's humiliating. In front of me is humiliating? She laughed shortly, maliciously. But was it not humiliating for me to see how you kissed her at the entrance of the building? Maxim, you deserved this humiliation. And if you want me to believe you at least a little, you will go and tell her in my presence that everything is finished between you. Otherwise, how will I know that you really broke it off with her and aren't continuing to meet in secret? He lowered his head and his shoulders slumped. Fine, it will be as you say. Vera looked at him and thought that, strangely, she felt no triumph, although she should have. She had won, she had brought him to his knees, she had forced him to accept her conditions. But why was there only a void inside, cold and indifferent, as if all this wasn't happening to her, but to another woman she was watching from the side? Maybe I have become cruel, she thought. Maybe revenge isn't what will bring me relief. But what else is left for me? To forgive and forget, to pretend nothing happened? No, I couldn't do that, I didn't want to. Maxim had to understand the price of his actions, to understand that betrayal has consequences. And if for that she had to become harder, colder, so be it, she would learn. At 12:30 they went down, and every step on the stairs echoed in Vera's temples like a heavy blow, as if she wasn't walking to the neighbor's entryway, but to an execution, where executioner and victim were all three simultaneously. Maxim walked beside her, pale, with a stony face, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, and he was silent, only breathing heavily, jerkily, like a man before jumping into cold water. The courtyard was almost empty, a workday. Adults at work, children at school. Only at the sandbox were two little ones bustling about under the supervision of a grandmother who, seeing Vera and Maxim, followed them with a long, inquisitive gaze, and Vera felt an unpleasant shiver go down her back. She knows, the thought crossed her mind. Everyone here knows. The second entryway greeted them with the smell of dampness and cat urine, which had entered the peeling walls so deeply that no cleaning could get it out anymore. The elevator wasn't working, and they walked up to the 4th floor. And with every step Vera felt the tension growing, something tightening inside, turning into a tight knot of anxiety and rage. At the door of Lyra's apartment, Maxim stopped, turned to Vera. Maybe we shouldn't, he asked quietly, imploringly. I will speak alone. Honestly, I will tell her everything. But why do you need to see this? Ring, Vera answered shortly, pointing to the doorbell button. Maxim pressed it, and somewhere inside the apartment a simple, cheap melody rang, which, for some unknown reason, made things even sadder. Steps were heard, the door opened slightly, and Lyra's face appeared in the crack. First smiling, then, when she saw Vera, frozen, whitened, as if all the blood drained from her cheeks at once. Max, what? She began, but Maxim interrupted her, and his voice sounded dull. We need to talk. Can we come in? Lyra hesitated for a second, then stepped aside, letting them into the narrow hallway, full of shoe boxes and loaded with outerwear. The apartment was small, with one room, and it smelled here of sweet perfumes, the same ones Vera had smelled yesterday on Maxim. Disorder reigned in the room, the unmade bed, clothes thrown on armchairs, empty glasses on the coffee table. And this obvious negligence of living seemed to Vera something insulting, as if Lyra didn't even try to create the appearance of something serious, limiting herself only to physical intimacy. I understand you found out everything, said Lyra, addressing Vera and trying to display something resembling compassion on her face, but it came out fake. Listen, I'm sorry, seriously. I didn't want to destroy your marriage. It just happened that way. It just happened that way? Vera asked again, and her voice sounded surprisingly calm, although inside everything was boiling. You accidentally fell into bed with a strange husband? Lyra pursed her lips, crossed her arms over her chest. Do you think I seduced him? He came to me himself. He himself complained that it's sad at home, that you don't pay attention to him, that he feels useless. I was just there. Maxim flinched, took a step forward. Lyra, don't, he murmured. Don't. Yes, I am guilty. Not you. I came to say that everything is finished between us. Forgive me, but I can't anymore. My family is more important. Lyra looked at him for a long time, scrutinizingly, then snorted shortly, maliciously. I understood. So, you played and that's it. Max, do you seriously think you can simply pick up and leave, as if nothing happened? But what happened, Lyra? Vera asked, watching the neighbor's facial expression and hunting for any emotion. Love or just a convenient option for entertainment? Lyra threw her a look full of hate. You don't understand, she threw at her. With me he was happy, real, alive. And with you he just exists, like a robot. Got up, had breakfast, left for work, returned, had dinner, went to sleep. Day after day, the same thing. I offered him what you cannot offer him. Passion, emotions, the sensation that he is still alive. And did you offer him a conscience? Vera asked quietly. Did you give him the right to look his daughter in the eye? Did you give him the respect of the neighbors, who now all know that he is cheating on his wife in the neighboring stairwell? No, Lyra, you offered him only humiliation. And yourself as well. Lyra went pale and tears sparkled in her eyes. Get out, she said abruptly. Both of you. Maxim, I don't want to see you anymore. Go to your wife if she is so correct, if you are so happy. Just don't come afterwards, when you want to feel like a man again, and not a house pet. Maxim opened his mouth, wanted to say something, but Vera touched his hand. Let's go, we have nothing left to do here. They left, and the door slammed behind them so hard that the echo rolled through the entire stairwell. Maxim walked ahead, head bowed, and Vera followed him and thought that, strangely, she felt no relief. The scene she had imagined was supposed to bring her satisfaction, but instead, it left only a bitter taste in her mouth, the sensation that all three, she, Maxim, and Lyra, lost in this story. Entering the stairwell, they bumped into Galina Petrovna, who was standing at the mailboxes and, seeing them, pursed her lips expressively. She greeted only Vera, nodding coldly, and ignored Maxim, as if he didn't exist. This demonstrative ignoring was more eloquent than any words. It begins, thought Vera, watching Maxim hunch over even more. Now the whole courtyard will judge him, whisper behind his back, discuss. And this is just the beginning. They returned home in silence. Maxim immediately went to the living room, locked himself there, and Vera sat in the kitchen, made herself tea, and looked out the window for a long time, seeing nothing. The following days flowed slowly, viscously, like hardening honey, in which all three were bogged down. Vera, Maxim, and their dead marriage, which still breathed out of inertia but no longer truly lived. Maxim went to work silently, returned silently, ate what Vera put in front of him, and immediately retreated to the living room, where he spent his evenings with his nose in the TV, but Vera could see that he wasn't watching the shows, but simply sitting with a blank stare, digesting what had happened. On the third day after the talk with Lyra, he brought the documents from the registry office, the papers for the apartment transfer, put them on the kitchen table in front of Vera, and his hands were trembling slightly, barely visibly. Here, he said quietly. It needs to be filled out, then we go together to submit them. They said 2 weeks for processing. Vera took the documents, scanned the lines where it was written in black and white that the apartment they had lived in for 12 years would become her exclusive property. She should have felt triumph, satisfaction, but instead a heaviness rose inside. Good, she nodded. But what about the car? Tomorrow I go to the traffic police, find out what is needed. Vera, he stumbled, looking for words. I really want to fix everything. I understand that you don't fix things just with documents, but I am trying. Try, she answered him evenly, putting the papers aside. Just know, Maxim, that even if you fulfill all conditions, that doesn't mean I will forgive you. Forgiveness must be earned not with money and not with apartments. With what then? He asked, and a desperate hope broke through in his voice. Tell me what to do, and I will do it. Vera looked at him for a long time, studying this familiar face that now seemed almost strange, and realized she didn't know the answer. What to do? Turn back time? Erase from memory that week, the 2 months he spent with Vera? Erase the humiliation she felt finding out the truth? I don't know, she admitted honestly. Possibly you will never be able to earn forgiveness. Possibly we will live the rest of our days together, but not as husband and wife, but as 2 strangers under the same roof. Maxim went pale, but remained silent, and this silence was worse than any words. On Saturday, when Vera went down to the store for groceries, she bumped into a whole group of neighbors gathered at the entrance of the stairwell. They fell silent seeing her, but Vera managed to catch a fragment of conversation, something indignant, completely lost their shame. This youth. And understood that they weren't talking about her, but about Lyra. Good day, she greeted, slowing her pace. Oh Vera, hello dear, answered one of the neighbors, Tamara from the ground floor, a full woman with a kind face. How are you? How are things going? Normal, thank you, Vera answered cautiously, feeling that something unpleasant would start now. You forgive us for being this way, but we all worry about you here, continued Tamara, and the others nodded with compassion. We know what happened. That Lyra completely lost her shame, stealing others' husbands. We met her yesterday, and she still turns up her nose, as if she is a queen here. Yes, in your place I would have told her a thing or two, intervened another neighbor, a skinny one with a sharp face, so she knows where she is stepping. And your Maxim, excuse me of course, but he is also a piece of work. He seemed like a decent man, but he too got greedy for a young one. Vera listened and everything tightened inside her. She didn't want this compassion, these discussions, this publicity of her humiliation. She wanted to be left alone, for no one to interfere with their advice and pity. Thank you for worrying, she said as politely as she could. But Maxim and I will sort it out ourselves. It is our family business. Yes, of course, you sort it out, Tamara nodded. Just keep him on a short leash now, so it doesn't cross his mind to stray again. Men are like that, you let them out of your hand, they climb on your head. Vera said goodbye and left for the store, feeling their gazes full of curiosity and pity on her, which was worse than contempt. It will always be like this now. The neighbors will look at her like a victim, will discuss her behind her back, will pity her. And they will look at Maxim with condemnation, with contempt, and this condemnation will become his punishment, heavier than any words Vera could say. I wanted this, she remembered, choosing groceries automatically. I wanted everyone to know, for him to get what he deserved. But why do I feel so sick? Why do I feel no relief? In the evening Ekaterina called. Her daughter's voice was worried, tense. Mom, hi. Listen, what is happening with you and Dad? He called me yesterday, he was so strange, saying something unclear about the fact that we need to talk. I got scared, I thought someone got sick. Vera froze, gripping the phone. It means Maxim decided to tell Ekaterina. One of her conditions was being fulfilled. Ekaterina, sunshine, don't worry, no one is sick, she said, striving to make her voice sound calm. Simply Dad and I are having a difficult period now. We are not on the best terms. What happened? The worry in her daughter's voice intensified. Mom, you aren't divorcing, are you? Vera closed her eyes. How to answer? To tell the truth or let Maxim admit everything himself? I don't know, Ekaterina. Honestly, I don't know. Your father did something that hurt me very much. But these are our affairs and we will try to sort them out ourselves. You don't get upset, the main thing is to study well. Don't get distracted by our problems. How can I not get upset? Ekaterina's voice trembled. You are my parents. Mom, tell me, what happened? Did Dad cheat on you? The direct question took Vera by surprise. Ekaterina had always been perceptive, sharp-tongued. But Vera didn't expect such frankness. Where did you get that from? She avoided the answer. Mom, I'm not little. When parents say, difficult period, and not on the best terms, it's usually about cheating. So, did he cheat or not? Vera sighed. It made no sense to lie. Yes, she said quietly. He cheated, but he regrets it, promises to correct himself. Ekaterina, I don't want you to think badly of Dad. People make mistakes, even adults, even parents. Silence fell on the other end of the line. Then Ekaterina exhaled sharply. I can't believe it. Dad. Mom, I am so sorry. What will you do? For now, I don't know. I am giving him a chance to fix everything. If he can't, we will separate. But I will make this decision later, when the emotions settle. Do you want me to come? To support you? No, sweetie, you don't need to. You have school, the session is soon. I will manage alone. I am strong, you know that. When the conversation ended, Vera sat and stayed in silence for a long time. Ekaterina knows. Now everyone knows. The neighbors, the daughter, the friends. Their family drama has become public domain, and it is no longer possible to hide. 2 weeks passed, and outside spring was already beginning to timidly break through. That deceptive early spring, when the sun warms during the day, the snow melts, streams flow on the asphalt, and at night frost strikes again, turning all this water into a slippery crust of ice, dangerous and treacherous. Vera sat in the kitchen, holding the apartment documents in her hands, where her name was listed as the sole owner, and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a strange emptiness, as if she used up all her strength for this victory, and now didn't know what to do with it. Maxim had fulfilled all conditions. He transferred the apartment and car, opened access to accounts, talked to Ekaterina, although she, after the discussion with her father, did not answer the phone for 3 days to either him or Vera, digesting the betrayal that hit her harder than Vera expected. He went to work, returned home without being late by even 1 minute, showed receipts from stores, proving he had been nowhere except work and home. He tried and bent over backward, trying to regain at least a grain of trust. But with every day his eyes became duller, his shoulders more slumped, and Vera saw how he was breaking under the weight of guilt and condemnation. The neighbors continued to discuss their story. They ignored Maxim, demonstratively didn't greet him in the elevator, turned their backs when meeting, and Vera saw how this destroyed him. Lyra, as Tamara had told, moved out 1 week after their discussion, unable to stand the sidelong glances and whispers behind her back. Where she went, no one knew, nor were they particularly interested. In the evening, when dusk fell outside and the courtyard filled with silence, disturbed only by the rare barking of dogs, Maxim entered the kitchen, where Vera was sitting with a cup of tea, and stopped in the doorway. "May I?" he asked quietly. "Come in," she nodded. He sat opposite, clasped his hands on the table, and Vera noticed that in these 2 weeks he had aged about 5 years. His face had become gaunt, deep shadows had settled under his eyes, the white hairs at his temples had multiplied. "I did everything you asked," Maxim began, and his voice sounded tired, drained. "The apartment and car are in your name, the accounts are open, I spoke with Ekaterina, although she almost doesn't hear me now. Vera, tell me, do we have any chance, at least one?" Vera cupped the mug with her hands, feeling its warmth, and was silent for a long time, looking for words. "Maxim, but can you answer honestly, why did you do this?" she asked, looking him in the eye. "Don't speak about boredom, about the fact that I became uninteresting. Tell the truth that you tell yourself at night." He flinched, avoided her gaze, then looked at her again, and something painful, exposed, sparkled in his eyes. "I got scared," he admitted after a pause. "I got scared that life is passing, that I am 42 years old and haven't achieved anything. The job is so, the salary at the limit, the daughter grew up and left. I suddenly realized that I am becoming invisible. To you, to everyone. You looked at me, but didn't see me. You walked past, spoke, but as if with furniture. And I wanted to feel like someone you notice again, someone you are interested in." "But me?" asked Vera quietly. "Did you think about me when you went to Lyra? Did you think it would hurt me?" "I thought about it," he nodded, "but I stifled those thoughts. I told myself you wouldn't find out, that it's temporary, that this won't change anything between us. Stupid, yes. To believe that you can betray a person and that won't change anything. Very stupid, agreed Vera. Do you know what is most terrible, Maxim? Not the fact that you cheated, not the fact that you lied, but that you did it so carelessly, with such indifference, in the neighboring stairwell, without hiding properly. As if I meant nothing, as if our marriage is just a burden from which you can rest for 1 week, and then return and everything be as before. Maxim lowered his head. I didn't think you would find out. That is not an excuse. I was simply an idiot, an egoist. I thought only of myself. And what changed now? Asked Vera. Did you stop being an egoist or just get scared of the consequences? He raised his eyes to her and there were tears in them. I don't know, Vera. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I got scared. Maybe I understood what I was losing. Maybe both one and the other. I only know that life without you isn't life. These 2 weeks in the living room, when you look at me like a stranger, when my daughter doesn't want to speak, when the neighbors spit behind my back. It's a hell. I deserved this hell. I understand. But I want to get out. I want to return what was, or at least try to build something new. Vera drank some tea. It was lukewarm, almost cold, with a slight bitterness. And if I say I can't, she said quietly, that I can't forgive, can't forget, that every time I look at you I remember how you kissed her at the stairwell? That, lying down with you in the same bed, I think about how many nights you spent in her bed? That it is like a splinter that sits deep and doesn't come out. Then I will leave. Maxim exhaled. If you say to leave, I will leave. The apartment is yours. The car is yours. I will rent a room somewhere, pay alimony, if you want. Just say it. Vera was silent for a long time, too long, and in this silence hung their past, present, and uncertain future. She thought about the 14 years of marriage, about Ekaterina, about that tea they drank in the mornings, about that closeness that had once been between them, and about the fact that everything is destroyed, and it isn't clear if the shards can be glued so they hold tight again. I don't know, she admitted finally. Maxim, I really don't know. To chase you away is easy. To forgive is impossible. To stay together is a torment. To separate is also pain. You put me in front of a choice where there is no correct answer. What should I do? He asked desperately. To live, answered Vera. Simply to live on and prove every day, every hour, that you are worthy of one more chance. Maybe in 1 month, in 1 year. In 5 years I will be able to look at you without remembering that pain. Or maybe I never will. But as long as you are here under this roof, we have time to figure it out. Maxim nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Thank you, he exhaled. Thank you for not kicking me out. I won't disappoint you. I promise. Don't promise, Vera stopped him. Just do. Promises don't work for the 2 of us anymore. She stood up, went to the window, looked into the courtyard, where lights were turning on in the windows of neighboring stairwells, where other families lived, with their joys and troubles, with betrayals and forgiveness, with love and treason. Life continued, despite everything. And I became harder, thought Vera, looking at her reflection in the dark glass. I became someone else. And I don't know. Is it good or bad? But I survived, I endured and will live on. With him or without him, but already not that naive woman I was before. Maxim walked out of the kitchen slowly, and Vera remained alone with a cup of cold tea and with thoughts that ahead is a long road, the end of which is not visible, but which must be traveled step by step, day after day, making tea in the mornings and trying to understand what is left of their love and if something new can be grown on the ruins of the past.